Hello and welcome to the Lights on the Screen podcast. I'm your host, Jacob London, and joining me as always is Taylor. How are you?
I'm good. I am a little bit stressed, a little bit frazzled, but I'm good. You know, it'll be fine. Everything will be fine. Early stages of wedding planning are so much fun when you cry about how much money you're about to have to spend on things. But, you know, I'm good. It's great.
Yeah. I just am looking at a house deposit and going, that's gonna go for a wedding. Okay.
That's how it works, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Alayna, how are you?
Single and happy.
How are you this post-Valentine's Day?
Single and happy. Happy I'm not spending so much on a wedding. Maybe one day, but we'll see.
You're going to spend a lot to come to it, but,
True.
you know, that's fine.
Yeah.
See about that? No, I'll be there. Then no, I'm good. Let's go.
Yep. This week on the show, guys, we are, of course, talking about the latest from Marvel Studios, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. But before we get into that, guys, actually, a bit of a without notice. There was a whole bunch of trailers that dropped for Super Bowl because obviously we sat and watched the Super Bowl. Clearly, Alayna, you're a massive Super Bowl fan.
Oh, literally loved when the Broncos won.
If you actually got the right team, then I would have been so impressed. But no, well done.
I have no idea who played in the Super Bowl. Rihanna won.
Yeah, that's fair. No, true. So just real quick, I guess, like from the trailers that you actually saw, because I know you've avoided most of them, Taylor.
Listen, a trailer would come up and I'd be like, eh. And then I'd get a Super Bowl commercial and I'd be like, all right, it's time to make my list. Listen, the Squarespace ad with Adam Driver, iconic. Instantly iconic. Like just having a million Adam Drivers cloned in one scene together. Perfect. No notes. The Bud Light commercial. I think it was Bud Light. Bud Light commercial with Miles Teller and his wife Kelly and their dog. They're adorable. He's dancing around with an adorable dog. Like what? Especially I was like, okay, hold music for 8 hours. I would also host a dance party, but I don't know if Jacob would actually join in with me. He'd probably just look at me like.
Well, I mean, the last time we did that, I slept and you got Spider-Man tickets.
Well, it was, to be fair, it was like 1 a.m, so that's a little bit of a different vibe. But I was seriously, like the true American that I am, I was much more invested in the stupid Super Bowl commercials that cost millions and millions of dollars for like 30 seconds of airtime. Like, I closed my eyes and started screaming when the Flash abomination came on the screen.
The Flash TV spot.
And so that's really like, and then the TV spots and stuff I did see, they weren't much different. Like there wasn't really new footage or anything. So that's all I have
Indy
to say
showed
about
like
that.
one extra scene, and I mean we got our first look at Fast X, which I just want to say,
Hell yeah.
I just want to say that trailer may be one of the worst major studio trailers I have ever seen. It is horribly edited
Are we
together.
surprised?
No. It's horribly edited. What have they done to Jason Momoa? Because he looks weird in that movie, and I don't know why, and it looks really weird.
Okay.
I don't care. I'm so excited for Fast X. It looks
They literally needed to not show me a single second of footage, and I would have been there. Just because after the last movie, I was like, you know what? If this is the trajectory we keep going in, where they're trying to one-up themselves into just being literally so out of the realm of believability that it's just like, that's what I want. I don't want it to take itself seriously. I don't want it to try to compete with like the serious like action drama. Like, not. I want people traveling back in time and actually going into space, like
Marvel
for real.
crossover, they're in the quantum realm.
Yes, that is what I want from these movies. So, you know.
Yeah, I am more just sitting there going, oh my God, this is going to be ridiculous and I don't care. But again, that trailer is awful. It is terribly edited. Like, it tells you the whole movie in 3.5 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an awful
What
trailer.
trailers are just getting too long? Why is a trailer 3.5 minutes?
I don't understand why it is. Like, it's because he does... Fast and Furious, they do the big event for the trailer, and so they feel the need that they have to go, hey, we've made this big event. We should probably put something that's more than just 2 minutes. And I just don't get it. But were any of the trailers jump out for you?
What did I watch? Guardians?
Guardians, yeah.
I watched
dropped.
that.
Yeah.
I'm really scared for Rocket's life.
Yeah.
So that's going to ruin me. What else is there? Air?
That was
Air,
Air
I
looks
was
fun.
just watching whatever my boss had on his computer when they dropped.
Air looks good.
Yeah,
Air looks good.
I'm excited.
I'm excited for Air.
The one at I don't know how I feel about Matt Damon in it. That's my only thing. I like Matt Damon as an actor, but for some reason he just felt like the one odd thing in the trailer that I didn't know if it really fit in, but maybe that's just the way the trailer's cut. But Ben Affleck, he looks ready to go. He's locked in, and I'm always excited to see him direct something.
Yeah.
And we don't get enough of that. So
No. Yeah, new Ben Affleck directed movie I'm in, and I'm excited. I think I just love the way the whole trailer is constructed of that build up to we're going to put everything on the line for this one rookie. Who's the kid? Oh, Michael Jordan. Oh, okay. It's like, oh, okay.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, I do love all that. But besides trailers, Taylor, what have you been watching?
I've been watching quite a bit, actually, and it's a really interesting mix of new things that I've been watching as well. Kinda they're all pretty much romance-based movies, but they're a little all over the place. So I finally saw Spoiler Alert, because it's finally out here to where you can actually go see it. And that was so emotionally devastating. There were 4 of us in the theater. There was me, this girl who was alone in the row in front of me, and 2 people a couple rows behind me. And the last 15 minutes, all you heard was sniffling and people trying not to sob. It was a rough ending.
And you think that because you know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
it softened the blows.
It tells you exactly what's going to happen. You know, it's telling you, hey, spoiler alert, this is coming for you. And then you're like, oh, okay, no.
It's the way they do it is just heartbreaking.
It's the rest of the movie leading up to it, it's adorable and it's awkward and it's cute and it's just this sweet rom-com. It's the chemistry between the characters is really great. It's fun. It's a fun movie. And then you get to the end of it and you're like, why? Why would you do this? Why would you attack me in this way?
Yeah.
And anyone who has any personal ties, whether it's actually because of you or because of someone you know, if you have a tie to someone who's had cancer, or if you've ever had to watch someone through the last stages of their life, this is gonna it's a lot, but it's really, really good. I would recommend it, but
be aware.
There's a huge disclaimer on that. Just be prepared for what you're in for, because you probably think you're ready because you know what's coming. I promise you're not ready. It's a lot. So that was the first one. Then I watched, for the very first time, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
For the first time?
I didn't
For the first time.
Wow, okay. I thought you'd
How
already
many times do I have to say I don't watch McConaughey movies?
No, that's fair.
Oh,
I thought you were
I'm
rewatching
dizzy
it.
right
No,
Oh, wow.
No,
okay.
It was
wow.
it was the
I
first
feel
time.
dizzy right now. Oh my God.
It was the first time watch for me.
Can I tell that story? I need to tell this story.
I don't know what story you're talking about, but sure.
So I come out. Oh, this is a good about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I come out and Taylor's watching a movie, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool, yep, all right. Come down, sit down. And go, okay, yeah, no, she just likes that one. That's fair. That it's the epitome of a Taylor movie. I'm like, okay, fine, fair enough. And I go back into my room, and I don't know what I was doing, but I was doing something anyway. And later I go, oh, what do you think? She's like, oh, well, I'd never seen it before. It was Music and Lyrics.
okay.
Which is a Hugh Grant music movie with Drew Barrymore, and it's the epitome of a Taylor movie. And she put it up that she had never seen it before, and every man and their dog was like, "Wait, how have you?"
I got
never
15
seen
replies
this?
on Twitter going, "Excuse me," and then I replied to added everyone. I was like, "You've all let me down by up until this point, just assuming that I had seen this and not telling me what I was missing in my life." So yeah, I watched How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It was really cute.
Yeah.
Really liked it.
Do you get my like Matthew McConaughey?
Matthew
obsession now?
McConaughey has rights in one single movie, and it's this movie. Like, I'll give him that much. Catherine Hahn is phenomenal.
Yes.
She is so good. It's just really cute. I just feel like I'm glad that we got Glass Onion because we don't talk about Kate Hudson anymore. Like, we just don't. And she's just always so good in everything that she's in, and she's so fun, and she has that the camera just loves her thing. Like, anyway, so that was great. That was a really good first time watch. I rewatched I Love You Man, and it definitely got worse for me. Like, my rating went down. I posted that I watched it, and all these dudes replied being like, oh yeah, such a great funny, like, oh, all these scenes, and I'm sitting there going, I don't think it's aged very well. Like,
I love you, man.
I used to really, first time I watched that movie, I was really into it because Paul Rudd. Like, I don't need to say anything other than that. But some of the humor in it just has not aged well for me. Like, it's
2009 is like peak. Like,
there's a lot of misogyny just casually thrown in there, and a lot of it just like I thought was funny when I was younger, but my humor just like isn't that anymore. So I rewatched that. I watched Somebody I Used to Know, which I watched specifically because Jay Ellis is in it, and I'm on my Top Gun Maverick bullshit still, where I just watch things that anyone that was in Top Gun Maverick is in. Plus, it's a romance movie, so duh. Like, that's just my brand. I really liked it. I didn't know what to expect going into it. If you don't actually know what it's about, I think you're going to get to the end of it and be like, that's not what I thought it was about.
okay.
So you're either going to love that or you're really not going to be on board with where it goes. But I thought that it's one of the few stories, like, it's funny, but not in like a mean way. And it's also, it gives all of the characters a lot of room to be messy and a lot of room to like make mistakes and then actually like learn something by the end of it. When things get resolved, it's not just things getting resolved because it's a rom-com. It's like they all do really shitty things and they make mistakes, and then you get to the end of it and there's actually, you're like, all right, they've really learned something. They get to be better people in this next phase of their lives, and everyone just had really good chemistry too, so it was really good. I would recommend anyone checking that one out. I watched At Midnight, which again is part of my Top Gun Maverick bullshit because Monica Barbara's in it. Diego Boneta is also in it, who I adore. He's really great, and we don't see enough of him in things. It's another rom-com, and it's really fun because Monica Barbara plays an actress in it, and Diego plays like a hotel manager, and she goes to Mexico for 6 weeks to finish like filming this trilogy of films she's doing. She's in a superhero movie, and they show you some of the scenes of her like filming the superhero movie. It's hilarious. Like, it's just so, there's a scene where she's like, oh yeah, Scorsese just says we're not art, man. I don't know. It's so good. It's so funny. They have really cute chemistry together. It's just a fun movie. There's a scene where they tango dance, and it's awesome. Like, I just love it. It's another one of those rom-coms where the leads actually have chemistry. It's really cute. It has a lot of heart. So I would recommend that one as well. That one's a Paramount Plus thing, so had to figure that one out. Last one I watched is a bit controversial. People are very, like, Your Place or Mine has divided people.
Oh, wow.
Your Place or Mine, like, people are not happy about this movie, and I went into it. I didn't even know if I wanted to watch it because everyone said it was so bad. Like, people are just ragging on it so hard. And I didn't really even know, like, my friend, I was messaging her, and like, she just decided she wasn't even going to watch it. And I was like, oh, you know what? I feel like I need to. Like, I need to know for myself if it's really that bad. Because I've seen some bad rom-coms in my day. Like,
Having watched 100
of them in 1 month. I feel like I'm a certified expert on these kind of things now. And honestly, I think the actual premise of the movie is the thing that works against it the most, unfortunately, because up until the last like 10 minutes of the movie, Reese and Ashton are not together on screen at all.
Oh.
They're in different cities the whole time. Like, it's split screen stuff, or they're off doing their own things. So the premise of the story is her and her son are in California, and Ashton's character is in New York, and they've been friends for 25 years. And she's supposed to go visit him for a week for, like, the first time in years and years and years. And the son is supposed to have a babysitter and stay back home and whatever. Something happens with the babysitter, so Ashton decides to fly out to watch her son while Reese goes to New York to do, like, the classes and the school stuff she needed to fly out there for while she was hanging out with him. So they basically switch places, and Ashton's hanging out with her son the whole time, and she's in New York. And it's like she, you know, like, meets one of Ashton's, like, exes, and they hang out and, like, all this stuff, and then he's over here with the son, and it's like, I don't know how they're supposed to, because people say their chemistry is bad, and it is, but I don't know how you're supposed to create chemistry when they're literally never on screen together.
That's weird, yeah.
Like, not until the last 10 minutes when they have their big romantic reunion, they're never in the same place. And you could do this premise, but you'd have to do it where it's like, you'd have to cut it to, like, half the movie where they're not together, because having it be the whole movie, just when they reunite, you're like, oh, yay. It feels really weird. So that didn't really work for me, unfortunately. Steve Zahn is in it. His character is so random, and he's probably my favorite part. Like, there's literally no reason for him to be in the movie, and he's great. Like, he's probably the best part. And I really think, I don't know, maybe it had to do with, like, the casting as well. I love Reese, but I don't know if this was the right movie for her. It's just, there are a lot of weird things working against it, but I don't necessarily think it's as horrific as everyone is trying to say that it is. But again, people probably haven't watched as many rom-coms as I have and know the depth of how bad they can actually get. So
this is so perfectly timed, but I just read this tweet that is about it, and I want to get your comment.
Okay.
Your Place or Mine committed the rom-com cardinal sin #1. Don't cast a guy as the rival who has more chemistry with the female lead than her co-star.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on what rival they're talking about.
Okay.
Because if they're talking, I don't know if I would consider, Kutcher doesn't have any rivals in the movie necessarily. Like, if they're talking about Steve Zahn's character, no. That's very one-sided.
Okay.
If they're talking about, what's the actor? Hold on, I have to find the actor's name. If they're talking about Jesse Williams, because Jesse Williams plays the man she meets when she's in New York. Yeah. Like, that she has a fling with, who I'm assuming that's maybe they're talking about. She does have great chemistry with Jesse Williams. Like, they sit there and drink wine and talk about literature, and, like, they have this whole,
oh my God,
they have this whole thing. Like, you can tell that he's the chemistry is there. Like, it's a whole thing. So, like, I kind of sitting there during their scenes going, she's gonna leave him for Ashton Kutcher.
Don't know how I feel.
Interesting. So, I mean, yeah, I do think that's a bit of a problem. But again, she gets to spend time in the same room with Jesse Williams. They get to, like, have real eye contact and spend time together. So, like, I do think that's a big problem, because Ashton Kutcher has scenes with Tig Notaro, who Tig is in California and is friends with all of them, but she spends time with Reese, obviously, because she lives in California. And Tig and Ashton are really funny together. They have really great comedic timing where they bounce off of each other really well. Like I said, I think it all comes down to the fact that they're just never in the same room. They're always on a split screen talking on phone to each other.
And that's just so boring as well, the split screen kind of thing.
And it's just, they keep doing it over and over again. And that's, like, just, so it's a really weird formula to try and create romantic chemistry. So yeah, I had a lot of very complicated thoughts about this movie, because I was like, am I really going to defend this movie? Kind of, because I don't think it's the worst thing that I've ever seen. And it also had potential, like, to be really interesting. It just, there were some execution things that I think...
It's not the worst movie I've ever seen.
Listen, until you've watched 100 Hallmark Christmas movies, rom-coms, you haven't seen...
You haven't seen the depths.
You don't understand.
The dark web of rom-coms.
So that's been my week of movies.
Fair.
Alayna.
I've watched like 3 movies besides Ant-Man. So I don't have much, but I watched a little movie called The Savages. 2007. It stars Laura Linney and Philip Seymour Hoffman. God bless his soul. It was actually nominated for like Oscars and Golden Globes and Critics' Choice Awards. It's something that like would only get nominated in 2007. Like it's so 2007. But I watched it because of uni. I'm doing a course about aging and dying.
Oh.
And this movie is about aging and dying. So it was actually quite like quirky and a bit funny. Laura Linney and Philip Seymour Hoffman are brother and sister, and they basically find out that their father like has I think Alzheimer's or dementia. Can't remember which one. And they have to care for him as he goes into aged care and stuff like that. And yeah, so their kind of awkward sibling relationship works really well with their acting. And I didn't really enjoy it actually. It was just fine. But I would recommend it if you see it on Netflix or anything. I had to watch it on Microsoft Video Player through YouTube. Through university. So don't know where else it is. But it's on HBO Max if you're listening in the US. There you go. But besides that, I also rewatched The Hunger Games for like the millionth time. Epic. Relived my 12-year-old self. I have to expose myself because rewatching this, I realized something.
Oh, God.
No.
Oh, God. When I was, I was 12. I was Team Gale.
Look on your face.
When you were 12. Oh, my God.
Okay, yeah, we get it. I'm like 10 years younger than you. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, I was Team Gale, which is just like atrocious
disgusting.
now. Yeah.
That is so bad.
But like from rewatching the first movie, he doesn't do anything bad in the first movie, particularly.
No.
So just from that alone, I think it's fair to say I was Team Gale. I had not read the books. I had just watched the first movie, and little 12-year-old me was like, Gale is hotter than Peter, therefore Team Gale. Which was also my logic with Twilight at the time. I was Team Jacob. We grow up.
we learn.
We learn. So,
Oh, God.
but
Taylor Lautner used to work out at the gym that my mom worked at.
excuse
By
me.
the way,
Yeah.
just randomly, just in case
At the same
anyone
time?
Yeah. She worked there, and he would go work out there. Yeah, just in case
Arizona.
anyone cares.
I care a lot, actually. No, but yeah, The Hunger Games is epic. I'll always love it.
Catching Fire is still the best.
Oh
one.
yeah, 100%.
The filmmaking of Catching Fire is so good. The aspect ratio change when she comes up into the arena,
Whew.
dude.
Even like
Killer.
I get like the different color palettes and why they do it, but like, they also had like double the budget.
Yeah.
But the first one, like, because me and my friend were watching the first one, and then we started watching the second, but I was like falling asleep, so we stopped. But even just like watching them immediately after each other, you can just tell like how much more value it is.
Yeah.
For some reason, though, the first one is like a comfort movie for me. Like,
What?
Yeah, I don't
It
know.
is depressing.
yeah, I know.
I
That's,
didn't
that's how
realize
most of
until-
my comfort movies are.
True. I call Midsummer a comfort movie, so I actually can't talk.
I was. Wait a second. Hold on. That's at least the same level of messed up. At least. I don't know. I find the first movie, like, it definitely doesn't have the same budget, and there's some problems with it. But for some reason, I put the first movie on, and I'm just like in. Like, I'm just in.
Fair.
It's also a different director. It's the only one that's by Gary Ross
Yeah.
and not
Yeah.
Francis Lawrence. So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's got a different style to it, but it still holds up. I still gave it 5 stars.
My thing, and it's not the movie's fault, it's the book's fault, but Finnick, I will never forgive anybody.
No.
I will never forgive anyone for that. That was so unnecessary. We all knew what kind of danger they were in. We didn't need to sacrifice Finnick to show people that. Like, we know.
Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't
understand.
watched the Hunger Games
Yeah,
yet.
spoiler alert for the 8-year-old movie.
If you haven't watched it at this point, I don't have any pity for you. I really don't. But like, come on. Anyway, that's my one thing that I always
teenage young adult Taylor coming out right now.
Yeah, where I'm like, listen, I've got some bones to pick with this movie.
Yeah, can we be Team Finnick?
Yeah,
Can I do
think
that?
so. Yeah,
Because
think we
I
can.
was never like, I never had an emotional attachment to Peter
That's fair.
throughout like watching it when I was younger. Maybe I'll rewatch it now and have that emotional attachment that I should have had, but I don't know.
That was a weird 5 years. That was a
What?
weird 5 years.
That was an epic 5 years.
No,
We
like
need to go back to
where
this kind of
every
filmmaking.
every studio just went dystopian young adult.
I know, and they all
movie,
just tried
and
to.
Divergent,
we
Maze
got
Runner,
all of them.
all of them.
They don't make
them.
movies like this anymore.
Well,
they
no,
don't.
because they ran their oil, the well dry, and the last 3 tanked. So
Yeah, unfortunately.
like like Allegiant, they didn't even finish
They
the
didn't even
Divergent
finish-
ones
the
because
That's because Divergent just sucks. Besides the first one.
The first one is so good,
Yeah.
and then it just like
Yeah.
I don't know
We
what.
need more
but,
Hunger Games.
But again, the actual problem with Divergent, like as a series, is the ending sucks in the book.
Yeah.
The book ending sucks. So you're like, well, there's not much.
It's just not
I'm
finished.
not going to get into it because I don't want to spoil it. I would guess we're not going to do that. But it's, let's just say Triss had some really shitty friends by the end of that book.
I just love that we're going on a young adult
And also,
tangent right now,
I
which I
would, I'd
love.
like to say I feel like the Maze Runner probably wouldn't have had such a depressing just nosedive if Dylan didn't almost die filming the third one, where they had to just shut down all of production for like a year. There was some crazy shit going on back
Yeah.
then with these YA movies, man. I miss it.
Amazing.
God.
What a good conversation, guys. Look at that.
5 years. That wild 5 years.
I know.
Fair. And then last one, I rewatched Her last night on Valentine's Day by myself. Much to my parents, like, they found it hilarious that I went and did that. Because I just said I was going to watch a movie. They might have assumed that I was going with someone, so they just didn't ask. I come home and they're like, so how was your movie? And I was like, oh yeah, I went and watched Her by myself. And they're like, wait, are you hiding something from us? Like, is there a date you don't want to tell us about? I was like, no, I went and watched Her. And they were like, by yourself on Valentine's Day. I was like, you guys can shut up, actually.
Excuse me.
Don't just rub it in my face that I'm single. Thank you very much. And
Our parents the best.
yeah, and they were like, was there anyone else single in the theater? I was like, yeah, there was actually a lot of people. So shut up. But anyway, no, I love Her so much. Just everything about it. And it really like this viewing, because this was like the third time I'd seen it or something. I don't know why, but until now I didn't really realize how much, probably because I was seeing it alone on Valentine's Day, but I didn't realize how like much of a lonely person movie it is. And I felt weird for like all the couples in the theater. I was like, oh, you guys watching
It's
this
not a
right
really
now?
great Valentine's Day movie.
No,
I don't understand
think
why.
I think well, it was 10 years. I think like it
Yeah.
technically is a romance. Maybe the programmers at Palace didn't actually
Yeah.
watch the movie before they advertised.
Shocking.
It. I know. How dare they? But no, the script, the acting, the cinematography, of course, is just like stellar stuff. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it. I love it so much, and it's just not your typical romance. And to be honest, I don't even know if I don't really call it a romance. It's not really a romance to me.
It's a drama movie.
Yeah,
Like it's a.
it has a romance in it technically, but it's not really about that per se. So I don't know.
The only thing this just makes me more depressed about is Spike Jonze. Can you make another movie, please? Like,
What was the last movie he made?
That.
Oh, really?
It's been a decade. It's been a decade since he made a movie.
Like directed or anything?
He wrote the Jackass movies. He's a Jackass.
What?
Dude, Spike
What?
Jonze. Spike Jonze has one of the greatest careers ever. He is like
He is versatile.
Yeah,
He does
so
a lot
the
of-
Jackass movies are his. He writes for Jackass because that's where he came from. But then, obviously being John Malkovich is amazing. I love Adaptation. Adaptation has my favorite Nick Cage performance. I think it is incredible. Where the Wild Things Are is
I loved that as a kid.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really great movie. It's so different to everything else he does. And then Her, which is his masterpiece. I think Her is
How
easily.
the fuck does the same guy who wrote Her write fucking bad grandpa in Jackass? I don't understand this.
Because that's where he got his start. Like, he was with the Jackass crew. He's part of Jackass. So
Still, just doesn't make sense. But anyway, Her. That's all I've seen this week. Jacob's seen nothing, so
I know I
feel like this is like the second or third week in a row where you're like,
just stop watching The Last of Us in football and watch something else.
Yeah, that's fair. To be fair, it's not just that. I have also been packing, so I've been doing a lot of packing. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is Taylor sits down and watches movies, and I'm packing the house up.
I've been helping.
You have, no, admittedly, you have.
Anyway,
yes.
don't excuses. You could have watched one movie.
I could have. I need to start getting back into watching movies. It is just,
Well, you're kind of just watching the movies that we have to talk about, so at least you're doing that.
Yeah, at least I'm not just turning up and going, hey, I didn't watch anything at all.
That's going to be me Fast and Furious week. I'm not fucking watching that movie. I don't care how much you pay me. You don't pay me anything.
I don't pay you anything, so...
I was going to say, we all do this, the goodness out of our hearts, and because
I don't have the goodness in my heart to watch that movie.
This is not... We don't make money off of this.
What is there that week?
What week does that come? What date is it?
The 18th of May. There is nothing else coming out that week.
Well, I'll be not here.
All right, there is nothing else that week. Renfield got delayed here.
What?
Until when?
May.
When was it coming out?
No, April. Like mid-April.
It's not coming out here then for us anymore. Anyway, we can have a
Love
look at that. We can have a look at that afterwards.
Anyway.
Australian distribution, guys. It's amazing.
And they wonder why like everything tanks over here. It's like, because when everyone's talking about it in America, nobody can find it over here.
Yeah.
Everyone's
And they don't care.
and they just forget about it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Doesn't Pearl come out in like less than 3 weeks?
Yeah.
3rd of March.
Yep.
Nearly there.
Yep. We're almost there, guys. We can almost watch Pearl.
Home stretch.
Oh, man. Don't you love it? All right, guys. Let's move on to, of course, the movie we got to see at the same time as everyone else, and actually earlier, which is always great. And we are, of course, talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
You have a daughter, but you've lost a lot of time, like me. We can help each other with that.
Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne, along with Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, explore the quantum realm where they interact with strange creatures and embark on an adventure that goes beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. So what did we think of Marvel's latest?
So this was my tweet when we were still under embargo and could only give out our social reactions. My tweet was, Michelle Pfeiffer and Jonathan Majors in scenes together. The second post-credit scene. Those are the positives of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. That was my concise little immediate thoughts about the movie. And I've had a couple days to think about it. My opinion has not gotten better in those 3 days. There's... Tonally, this movie's kind of all over the place. It doesn't know if it wants to be... It doesn't know if it wants to move in the more serious direction it feels like the MCU as a whole is moving in, or if it wants to be a fun Ant-Man movie. Because it kind of tries to be both, and that doesn't really work. I'll get more into that when we talk spoilers, because there's a specific element of that I really want to talk about. The editing choices and the pacing of the film sucks. Like, it just never... It does, because it's choppy and it never falls into a good rhythm. Usually you have story beats where you cut certain scenes and a movie falls into this rhythm you can go on a journey with. And this movie it would cut to a new scene and I'd be like, what? What is happening? Like, it just was so chaotic, but not in an interesting way. Just like, what is happening? The action scenes, very chaotic. You couldn't see who was doing what kind of action or where you were, or like I never knew what character was doing the action or who was getting punched or like what. That was really bad. And none of the side characters or like secondary characters mattered. Like none of them really had a purpose for being there other than, oh, we got to move this story beat along. So we need a character there who can like have an excuse to like help move the story beat along. But they also like weren't interesting either. And we'll talk more specifically about that later. But that kind of really sucked. And I also feel like by the end of it, nothing changed. There was no actual character arcs for any of the characters. Like by the end, I don't feel like they learned anything or grew as characters or like there was just no, I feel like you could wipe this movie out of the MCU timeline and the characters, how they are, like the development would be the same, which is really, really strange. Especially for a movie that has like Kang the Conqueror in it. To have him really be the only character that I feel like kind of has an arc and the rest of them don't. And there's no real emotional crux. They want it to be the father-daughter relationship, but again, there's no character development. There's just nothing there. So by the end of it, when you're supposed to care about Scott and Cassie finally getting to spend time together and they quote unquote understand each other better now, like it's just really unearned and you just don't feel it. So I was really bored. I felt like most of the movie was pretty dull. The visual effects are a lot better than they were in the trailers, but so much of it still just feels untethered. Like I know it's the quantum realm, but it just, there's nothing tangible about it. Like they just don't take the time to make that a thing. And so it's really hard to feel like when you're moving from one, set piece to another, it's hard to like feel the weight of it. Like you should feel something when you're going from one place to another. You should have some form of connection or understanding of space and of like what, like you just never know what's going on with any of that. So it was all a bit of a mess, I think.
This is the first one for me. The Ant-Man movie, I'm not massive on the Ant-Man movies, but they've at least always known their role and Peyton Reed has been really well in tune to what they should be. I think Peyton Reed, I get that Peyton Reed would have been the first choice for it because he's done the other two. He's the wrong director for this movie.
Yeah, I agree.
They deciding that Ant-Man was going to now be not an Avengers level movie. It wasn't going to be the side comedy movie that the other two have been.
Well, yeah, they're the first movie that gets the big bad.
Yeah.
We haven't seen him in a movie. We've only seen him in a TV show up until this point.
Yeah, but and I think the problem with that is they're going, all right, Peyton, now you've got to go do the big world building, make the movie look bigger, and it just doesn't feel it. Like you actually do feel as though he's breaking at the seams, and the whole movie is just that. It's kind of just breaking and not quite it's very unsure of itself. And I think I think Peyton's limitations as a director really came out in terms of big budget action movie came out here because it's a lot more straight-laced rather than, again, a typical Ant-Man movie of, hey, we kind of play into the fact of how ridiculous and kooky this is and all that. Like here, they kind of play it a little more straight-laced because they have to, because they've got to make Jonathan Majors this terrifying villain, which admittedly, Majors is awesome. I think
He's
Majors
great.
and Michelle Pfeiffer are the two biggest positives from this movie. Will never ever forgive this movie for is you had William Jackson Harper and you have wasted him in the MCU. I will never forgive you for that because his character is just so wasted. And again, and the other thing that I think hurts this movie as well is it's the third film in Ant-Man. Where are all of the supporting cast from those other movies? Like we Louise isn't in here, and like I think we're missing a lot of those characters, and I just think this movie doesn't land the way, like, what it takes away from the other Ant-Man movies, what it gives us instead isn't interesting or as fun, and so you're kind of like, okay, this isn't as, I don't really enjoy it. What this probably could have been and probably should have been is a Thor movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where, like, it's leaning towards a little bit at one point. You're like, okay, so this is, you're kind of trying to be kind of Ragnarok. And you just haven't got a director who knows how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because I do think, and again, this is something that the director wouldn't have been able to fix. Like, this isn't Peyton Reed's fault. I just don't, and I get wanting to involve the quantum realm when you're bringing in Kang the Conqueror into the movies. Like, I understand that. But I just don't think Ant-Man was the right match. Like, I don't think putting him into the MCU through an Ant-Man movie was the right way to go. The tone, I just think, what people actually like about the Ant-Man movies basically had to be sacrificed to make this a movie that you can put Kang in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating because, it's just like the worst visual movie we've had, like, I don't know, ever in Marvel history, but it's quite bad.
Yeah.
Because especially, like, you're in the quantum realm and it should be this, like, colorful, marvelous thing, and it's just so dull, and you can tell it's, like, they're looking up or they're running from something, and you can just, it's a green screen. And it's not just because we have a film eye, and, like, it's just obvious. And that hurts it a lot, and I feel like Marvel having to go, like, having ventured out into space and gone beyond Earth, because I was having a conversation with, I think, co-workers, and we were talking about how back in the day it was just Earth. Like, all you had to deal with was Earth, and so that's why they didn't look like this in the past, and they actually put some effort into it. But now that it's all basically outer space and no ability for practical effects, it's just completely dull, which really hinders the enjoyment of the movie as well. And yeah, I agree that, like, Jonathan Majors is basically the only good thing about this movie. Like, I only really cared when he was on screen, and he bodies the Kang role. Like, he is epic. And I really loved Kang in Loki. Like, his character really interested me. And I love that series as a whole. It might be my favorite Marvel project they've done. So I was really excited for this to see where they go with the Kang character. And Taylor, you're right, like, he's, like, the only one that kind of advances, but, like, only the tiniest bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just Marvel now. They just kind of are making movies for the sake of making movies without actually considering if the characters are going anywhere and thinking about anything. So yeah, just another fumble of the bag from Marvel. I think the most confusing thing about this movie, because I think you're right, but the most confusing thing about, I feel like they're making movies because they're like, okay, we put this movie out, and by the end of this movie, these characters need to be here so that in the next movie, the universe can move forward to get to here. And then it can, like, they're planning it not based on making the individual movies interesting. They're like, this is the end goal. By the end of this, the characters need to be here. Don't care what else you do. But it needs to tie into this, that'll eventually tie into this, that'll eventually tie into that. Yeah.
But the problem is, like, Kang gets moved forward as a character maybe like half an inch. Like, his character development and none of the character development, I feel like by the end of it, like I said earlier, you could wipe this movie out and I don't think you would miss anything.
No.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, let's get into spoilers because there's something they do with Kang that I'm not a massive fan of.
Okay.
So let's just get into spoilers and then we can actually talk about that.
Okay, one last thing.
Yeah.
With the amount of money that gets poured into these movies budget-wise, I don't care what anyone says. They do not have any excuse not to put some money into making some practical effects. You could make a practical spaceship, capsule. You could make little things. It doesn't have to be everything.
Yeah.
But even if you just did one or two little practical things, it would help so much in making it feel grounded enough to where you're like, oh, yeah, they're walking off an actual spaceship ramp, and they're actually like, it's just because even now, like in the newer movies, they don't even film like real streets. Like they green screen people walking down a neighborhood street.
Yeah.
Which is the most frustrating thing in the world, and why the movies through and through, even if they're not in space, feel so fake now, because they refuse to actually use a real physical street. And they don't build an actual set of it. They just throw up a green screen. Yeah. And with the movie studio that's making the most money by a lot, that is absolutely
literally
disgusting.
Disney. Like, you have all the money at your
Like,
disposal.
what are you doing? Okay, now we can go to spoilers.
All right, let's go to spoilers and we'll start talking about this. Now, this is your spoiler alert for Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
So you're saying, like, you're right in that, we do a little bit of character development for Kang and then they kill him. Like, I know it's this version of it, of Kang, and they're kind of setting up, there's the multiverse of Kangs, and
I don't know if I believe he's actually dead, though.
yeah.
To be fair.
I'm more, okay.
But yeah, I get what you mean. That was my biggest fear going into the last 15 minutes of the movie. I was like, if we go through all of this and he just ends up, this version of Kang just ends up dying at the end, like what's the point?
Like, they come so close to making a choice in this movie as well, with Scott actually sacrificing and staying in the quantum realm. I was like, oh my god, you're gonna. I was hoping. I was like, that's an interesting choice. You're actually making a choice, and he's out. Okay,
and they're just easily going. She just pressed a button, and they're easily
back.
going.
And I just, it just felt like, come on, make some choices, make some bold, brave choices. And even though that would have been a cliffhanger to set up for another movie, fine, I'm fine with that, but you would have at least been interesting.
But there's no trade-off at the end. You kill or get rid of or whatever that variant of Kang, and then they still get to go back home, like in the snap of a finger at the end. And to me, that's just like, I don't get the point of trying to wrap this movie up in a pretty little bow when clearly, like, it's leading into bigger things. Like, especially, I guess what frustrates me is it's clear that these movies, while they are standalone movies, that's not the point anymore. And if that's not the point anymore, I wish they would just lean into it, because they're kind of half-assing it both ways. They're like kind of trying to make it a standalone movie, but then they're like, that it's like, you can feel that it's not that. And so I just feel like instead of getting one great movie that doesn't really stand that well on its own, but it's still like they're taking swings, and it's like, I just feel like they're just stuck in the halfway. And so we just get this movie that just feels like it doesn't, but like, I don't know.
Not to mention, it's like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and where the fuck is the Wasp?
Yeah.
And where is Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah.
Like I think you said on Twitter or in your Letterboxd review, Taylor, that like they aren't together at all.
No.
And then you're meant to like be happy that they're together at the end. It's just like, I don't get the Wasp part of this Ant-Man movie thing.
Well, I understand that, like, technically you need to have them together so that he has access to, like, PIM tech and stuff and whatever. But if you're going to do that, at least make me kind of buy it. Or have them, like, not be, like, getting along right now. Or, like, do something with it. But, like, you're supposed... There's a scene where they're, like, all in a car together after picking Cassie up from jail. And then there's another scene where they're all at a dinner table together. And you're supposed to believe in both scenes that Scott is the odd one out. That he's the one that's not hearing all the family secrets. That he's the one that doesn't know what's going on. But the movie never gives you any reason to believe that Hope and Cassie talk to each other. They never, like, directly... Like, it's so awkward.
Yeah.
It's so awkward.
I think the way the film handles Cassie is pretty bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Like,
It's really bad.
It tries really hard to make Cassie like an established character through all of these movies, but obviously because of the age jump, she's not the same Cassie, and we haven't seen all that. And it's not like the answer to that and how you answer that problem is Hope survived the snap or the blip or whatever they're calling it now. Like Hope was there for the 5 years, and that's that's their relationship.
Yeah.
But she wasn't, so she doesn't have anyone. Like,
But they want you to believe that she does.
exactly, and
Yeah.
that's the problem for me. Like they never address. They never really either dive into, hey, we lost 5 years, like because Cassie obviously didn't get snapped and everyone else did. We lost 5 years. They never really addressed that. And then they try and establish that it wasn't that Paul was the only one who lost 5 years instead of, no, they all did. Like it just, there's a really weird dynamic in how they try and establish these characters that hasn't been there in the other two movies.
Yeah.
And I just...
The whole dynamic is really, like I said, the tone is so different from the other two Ant-Man movies we've gotten that it just feels like a really weird shift. None of the characters quite fit in to the tone of the movie. Like they all just feel a bit off. Especially since like there are dramatic moments in the other two Ant-Man movies, obviously. But this movie just feels like it's asking way too much of these characters that we've never really spent a lot of time getting to know on a deep level that you kind of have to for this movie to work. Because, like, just having Cassie sit there and be like, and keep referencing that her dad's been gone and out of her life and stuff, that doesn't tell us anything. We already know that. Like, we already know that. And just, I don't know. I feel it's a problem. Okay, first of all, it's a problem because Michael Douglas clearly doesn't want to be there.
Oh God, I have not seen an actor in any of these movies so clearly just not want to be there.
He's not about it.
Yeah.
At all. So first of all, that's a problem, especially when Michelle Pfeiffer's trying so hard to like they could not be
working overtime.
They could not be more on opposite planets with that whole thing. So that makes things interesting in a really bad way. I can't tell if he just doesn't want to be there or if it's just the script is really bad. Like the dialogue is horrendous.
Yeah.
So the only moments when I wasn't sitting there like rolling my eyes at the dialogue is Jonathan Majors and Michelle Pfeiffer like talking to each other because they charm their way enough through it where you're like their chemistry is great and they're both really invested in it and you can tell that they're not just showing up for the paycheck. Like they're actually there to give a performance. And the rest of the everyone else trying to Cassie doing dialogue is a real bad time.
I really like Catherine Newton as an actress. She's not good in this.
No. She's not.
She's really not. She's not good in it. I really like her in Detective Pikachu. I think she is very talented. She's not in this. She's bad in this.
Well, and again, the father-daughter relationship that I'm assuming is what they want to be the emotional crux of this story. It's bad. Yeah. Like to some extent, it's like kind of ironically funny that she has no chemistry with Paul Rudd because it's like, yeah, they haven't spent time together since one of them got snapped. But at the same time, it's just so bad. Like, it's just when they share like their big like hug and stuff, you're just like,
you don't feel anything.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And like you guys were talking about it earlier with the way this movie uses scale and size. Yeah. Is frustrating.
Yeah, just slightly. Yeah.
Do you want to elaborate?
Okay, so this is not an original thought from my head. This is a tweet that I saw and I was like, oh God, that it's one of those things that like clicked and like helped me realize like why I was really annoyed with just like the aesthetics of the movie. The first two Ant-Man movies, they recontextualize ordinary objects that we're all familiar with. So like when Ant-Man shrinks and all of a sudden you have a Thomas the Tank Engine that's way taller and way bigger than him, you understand, like your brain just gets it. You're like, oh, he's really fucking small. Yeah. And this is really cool to see the world that we recognize from that perspective. Or when he gets really huge and all of a sudden he's taller than a skyscraper or he can lean against a skyscraper, our brains just, we get it because we're familiar with it and it makes sense. And you get that desired effect because the purpose of it is to have an effect, to get a reaction out of us. In the quantum realm, at least in this version they've created of the quantum realm, because I do think it's possible to make it work in the quantum realm, but not this quantum realm. There's no familiar objects, first of all, to us. It's all completely different, which is fine. You can get past that if you do it creatively. The problem is, at least 99% of everything in the quantum realm is visual effects or green screen. Like, it's not practical. And so it's not practical, and they don't do a great job of establishing scale either. Like, for the most part, it's really hard to tell like how far away things are or how big things actually are, or to really have anything to compare them to for the most part. And so when that scene when Cassie and Scott are both giant and they share a hug and they're like, oh, we're giants. And you're looking at it going,
They look so
Are you
normal
what?
sized.
Yeah.
like, that is such a huge problem, because I think that it's used so well. It's one thing in the first two movies that even if you don't love those movies, I think you have to appreciate that's like such an element of magic to it, where you're just like, you know what, that's fun. Like, that's really a cool idea and a really interesting way. And like from the second movie where they're in the kitchen and you have them navigating around and having like the fight, like that's so interesting at least, and it's fun. In the quantum realm, not only do they only utilize it a couple of times, but it's just like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like there's any magic to it. It doesn't feel interesting. It's just, there's nothing special about it, which is really depressing, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of where my big problem with a lot of this film comes from, is because it's so intrinsically set within the quantum realm, everything about it feels so fake. It never, like you were saying earlier, it feels on the entire movie, you can just feel the green screen. I can see the seams, like the entire movie, you can see the seams of where the green screen is, what's real, like, and.
But I do think even people who aren't like us, like who are more of a general audience, I think you can still feel it. Like, even if you can't pick out
Definitely,
why,
yeah.
I think you can still feel it.
No, and I think that's a problem with this movie's. I think it's a problem with the last few MCU movies, but I think like Love and Thunder had that problem. Love and Thunder had that massive problem as well, and I think this one has it just as big. And I think that's where, and again, that's the reports that we're getting about the Marvel and the visual effects artists, and it's just because they're so overworked and so underpaid. And
but again, like even if they were given all the time in the world and they were being paid as much as they were, I just like, and people can yell at me and be mad at me, I don't care. I just don't think visual effects are ever going to be able to fully replace feeling tangible things. I think, Jacob, it was you who said it to me, I think it was you. You said, because, when you have something that's actually physically, tangibly there, when you're doing lighting in a scene, like it's going to hit.
Yeah,
it's just going to hit it differently than you can make happen in a visual effects shot. And your brain just like knows those things. Like they're just things you can't.
Yeah. And I think, and there's a lot in this movie that visual effects wise, I think they do not get right. All right, let's
Can we talk about it? Because I am just disgusted and appalled.
It's the funniest moment in the movie, and not in
the way they wanted.
No,
MODOK is an atrocity.
It's so
When I tell you I was crying of laughter, Kiara and I could not stop laughing.
Listen, the look on Blake's face was priceless. Like, just...
Look.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, look, MODOK in this... And there's a way to do MODOK. There is absolutely a way to do MODOK in this, and it's not.
I haven't seen comic accurate MODOK.
Okay, the problem, the biggest problem that they have with MODOK is it's just Corey Stroll's face stretched,
but with nothing else done to it.
Yeah, and it's literally just like stretched.
Literally, the first second it appeared on screen and we got to see his really disturbingly stretched face, I went, this is Spy Kids with George Lopez's face, like in that circular thing, but with a much bigger budget, and somehow it looks worse.
I don't know why they had, because he had like the mask over his face. I don't know why they had to lift it.
That part I don't get either.
Like they lifted it and then it was funny.
Yeah.
Before that,
it could have worked.
They could have worked.
Yeah.
The stretched face just absolutely sent me into another.
And the little legs, and then he turns around and his little bum. Like,
yeah, that was
like
just hilarious.
there is a way to do it, and it's just the problem they have is you've just got to alter Corey Stroll's face.
Yeah.
It's too normal looking.
Yeah.
Put lines.
Well, yeah, you can see in the comics it's just lines, and it looks like really like his face is like dragged down almost.
Yeah,
but it's just
making it look like just
face.
his normal stretched face is so jarring because it feels so fake. Like it just feels fake. You've got to like give some rough and tumble and like some grit to it or something, because it was just really disturbing. Like every time he came on screen, I was like, I feel severely uncomfortable.
I was laughing every time, even if it was a serious scene. And I'm like, this is not what you want.
No. And then, you know, the way, and I get that his death of I'm now an Avenger, that moment is meant to be funny. Yeah. But it wasn't funny. It was just, this is stupid.
It was more like, it was actually just uncomfortable.
It was just why
it was like mean spirited, but in a really terrible way. Because the point of the scene was the audience is supposed to be laughing about it, and the characters in the scene are supposed to be really like humoring him, but uncomfortable. Like it's just a really weird. You can tell MODOK was supposed to be the comic relief in this film, and it really doesn't work. For me, because the humor doesn't work, but also because the aesthetics they chose are really, really distracting.
Yeah.
But also, why do you need comic relief in a movie with Scott Lang?
Yeah.
Like, what were they doing?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I get that you don't have his crew in the movie, and they're a huge part of the normal comic relief. But like, and I know Scott's going through it a little bit in this movie, but it feels like they kind of sucked a lot of his personality out of him because... Yeah. Like, except for in the very beginning and the very end where he's strolling down the street doing his thing. But then they get to the quantum realm and it's like he's not even the same person anymore. Like, it's just really weird how they've just all of a sudden were like, and Scott doesn't get to be the comedic guy anymore. It's going to be MODOK. And also, we're going to shove it into scenes with Jonathan Majors where it really doesn't work at all. Like, it's really odd.
MODOK, like... I get being like, hey, MODOK in the world of their mindset makes sense, as in like, hey, it's the quantum realm of like after what he went through, like, yeah, obviously MODOK's here. That makes complete sense. And I think if you had just either kept the mask shut or had made him menacing through the entire thing,
or absurd, make him more absurd. Like, don't give me realism. You got to go one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think that's the big problem with MODOK is like, I get MODOK is inherently a silly character, and comics and everyone have kind of made him a joke as well. Like even the animated show made him a joke as well. But like, so then do that. Make him a joke and an actual joke, but you've got to make the visuals serious so the joke lands. And having the joke just be, hey, look at my weird big face. It's like, that's not funny. That's just bad.
Yeah.
Like because the first thought when you see it is that's really bad visual effects. Like you're not thinking of, oh, this is so absurd, it's funny. It's like, no, we all know it's visual effects and it's lazy, bad. And unfortunately, that's what it comes across as. Yeah. Like it comes across as it's lazy and
when in reality it was probably a choice from the higher ups. And then the visual effects people are sitting there going,
it feels like Sonic all over again. Like, and you're just like, okay, all right, that's where we're at now. All right, like I
want to talk about something else that really annoyed me, because I feel like the whole point of this scene, and it probably actually isn't this, but it comes across feeling this way. I feel like the whole point of this scene was, we need a really big celebrity cameo. How can we put someone in there? Because Bill Murray, that scene is so pointless. Yeah. It's what I was kind of referring to earlier in the non-spoiler portion. He's literally there to move the characters from one spot to the next.
Yeah.
But that's literally, and to have some weird background with Janet, but like
that never comes back.
Yeah.
Never really gets
Yeah,
readdressed.
it never comes full
or,
circle.
Like,
It's just what?
and because he gets killed, it's kind of like, oh, this isn't. Yeah.
It just felt like they went, well, we can plop Bill Murray in here and it'll get a great audience reaction. Like, that's what it felt like the whole scene was. And it's just like, why?
Even his entrance kind
His
of like
entrance
felt a
feels
bit
like it.
meta.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's Bill Murray.
Yeah.
It does. It feels like he walks in and everyone there is supposed to like,
Go,
you know,
"Oh,
like
it's
throw
Bill
confetti
Murray."
or something.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels really.
They kind of do that, like with the Harry Styles post-credit scene for Eternals. The way that he entered, it was like, we're bringing out Harry
Yeah.
Styles.
I
But,
really
like,
hope that trend doesn't keep. I mean,
Yeah.
it probably will, but I just hate it.
Like, for a post-credit scene, it can kind of work.
Yeah.
Like,
For
because,
sure. Yeah.
like, a post-credit scenes can work because it's... And especially the way that one does it is being built as that kind of moment of like, oh, we're bringing like there's a name coming. Like, it's being
Yeah.
built as that, and it's kind of, whereas in this one, it's no, this is a character moment. This is a moment for these characters and a plot point. Like, and it's just
Yeah.
it feels weird,
That
really bad.
nah.
Yeah.
And like, even when they, you know, we see Scott and Cassie with like the people that live in the quantum realm, like they're captured and brought down to meet with the people there. And you know, that's where we see William Jackson Harper. Unfortunately, like, he's great, but that's just, I feel so bad for the lines he has to stand there and say because they're so bad.
Yeah.
His character is just such a nothing, like, throwaway thing. But like, in that moment, it's supposed to be a really funny moment, like, clearly, because they make him drink the holes guy, which is a whole thing. And then they like understand the language, and then it's supposed to be this funny thing. And you have the little character yelling about not having holes, and they have the whole thing that's supposed to be funny because it's like, how many holes do you have? Like, it's just, it's really just, I don't even know how to, it's just so, it's just bad. It's just really, like, it's supposed to be this thing that, you know, works as kids won't understand it, but it's still funny, but adults should think it's funny, and it's just really not that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Well, do you want to talk? So, have you actually watched the second post? No, wait, you couldn't have because it's airing tonight. I was like, oh, have you actually watched the second post credit scene?
Yeah, no, we left.
The second post-credit scene, I could have taken 90 to 120 minutes of just whatever was going on.
Well, we're getting it.
I was really like, because I left and because I was like, I can just watch it at work. Like, I'll go into one of the cinemas, whatever. And then you texted me saying it was Loki, and I was like, fuck! God damn it!
I literally,
it's fucking Loki.
I think I put it in my review, but I was like, that was the most excited and responsive I was to what I was seeing on screen for the entire movie.
I think it's the most excited I have been from something from
Can you
Marvel.
explain it to me?
So, but it's all right. It feels like it's a scene directly from the coming season.
It does, yeah.
Like they've
Right,
just
okay.
grabbed it.
So they go back in time.
It looks like it's 1930s.
Oh.
Something like that, and you have Jonathan Majors, Kang, whatever, on a stage, and he's like doing
Giving a monologue or something like about time and
something like that, and then it pans from him to the audience, and you see
Hiddleston and
Owen Wilson talking, and he's like, oh, I thought you said this guy was like scary or something, and Loki's just like,
that's the guy.
he
That's
is
the guy.
like,
yeah,
you don't get it, and that's like the whole scene.
Right, okay.
yeah. Like it's
It's really short, but I was like,
Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up.
it's
Like,
just
wait
like
a second.
Yeah, we're getting.
wait,
actually,
why? I want this. And then it cuts to black and says Kang will return.
Yeah,
Oh, nice,
which is
nice.
like that's.
But
the
that was the
interesting-
whole. I spent so long in that movie theater watching that movie, and that 30 seconds, I was like, oh, yes. all right, Loki season 2. That's the only thing I care about anymore.
Yeah,
Let's
same,
go.
Same. That's all I'm holding out for.
Like, I think that's the most excited for something in the
I
MCU
was like,
in
oh my God,
nearly
yes.
2 years.
Yeah,
like,
pretty much,
it's-
Yeah.
So,
I'm just at this point, and I said this on another show today, like, and like even the Guardians trailer, like, I just
it looks fun.
It
but
looks fine. I cannot get excited for a Marvel movie right now because
I'm hype for Guardians, like very deep down somewhere. I'm really hyped for it, but I'm also like just cautious.
no, after Black Panther, I don't think I can until a movie just actually gets me excited because you remember when that trailer dropped afterwards, we were all like, holy crap, this is the most excited I have been for a Marvel movie in years because that trailer was incredible. And I was like, oh my God, this is Black Panther. It's Ryan Coogler. He's going to come back. And the movie was so mediocre. Like, just so bland and mediocre. And what is this? Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, look, Secret Invasion could be cool. Loki season 2, I'm very excited for. I don't know about everything else at this point. Where I'm at, like,
Yeah.
Marvels comes out in July, maybe.
Yeah, that
May-
one, like, I mean, it's not getting much attraction around it, probably because it's like Captain Marvel and everyone is a misogynist, apparently.
yeah. That sounds about right.
So, yeah, it's yeah.
I'm excited about that one just because I want to see all of the YouTube man babies crying and screaming about Brie Larson again.
Yeah.
I will say I'm excited
Yeah.
for because they just somehow
I just want to see women on screen.
yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
But that's, yeah.
And I actually quite liked that TV show. What was it?
Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel,
Yeah.
yeah. Again, I was on a plane and it was all I had to entertain me. And I think everything I watch on planes is just like incredible to me for some reason. But I really liked that show. So hopefully that's good. I don't know.
Yeah, but that's kind of where I'm at with the MCU right now. Is just I not so much need a break as in, which I probably do.
Which is
like
impossible.
Like, well, that's the other problem. Is it's
Unless you
impo-
just do like miss the movies and not
Yeah.
see them, and then eventually you'll catch up with them. But also like then you like miss if you're fine with missing discourse, I guess.
But not only that, like it's, you know, you go, oh, well, just don't see them. Yeah, like my parents or other people, I will tell them, just don't go see them. That you do not have to see them.
Yeah.
Go, for what we do, it's impossible.
Yeah.
You can't not go see these movies because they completely control the media right now and completely are the discourse around where media is right now. Like I don't ever want a movie to tank, and I do not want Ant-Man to tank. It's the first one I have a feeling it could. This is the first one in a while that I have a feeling could actually not tank, but really,
But by their standards.
but
yeah.
underperform. And
Yeah,
I think that there's a real chance at the moment, and it's not that I want that to happen or that I'm like rooting for it, like going, yes, people lose money. Like I don't want that, but it's at the same time is I just wish Hollywood would give us something different.
Well, and here's the problem too. I used to be really excited about Marvel movies, and as much as like I do think it's a bit of a quality issue now, we also never used to get this many at the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like if we were still getting 2 a year, 1 or 2 a year, I would be ecstatic about that. The problem is they're just trying to pump out so many and do TV shows and do so much that it's like, even if I wanted to take a break from it and step back, I would get so behind so fast.
oversaturation,
Yeah.
Like I would, if I took, a year and a half off from watching it, I would be like 8 movies and 3 TV shows down all of a sudden. And I'd be like, that's a lot.
Well, I mean, you're already like 4 shows down.
Yeah, but I'm also not a big TV. Like
Yeah.
I personally have problems with keeping up with
No,
TV.
but I'm like,
But
it's-
but the thing is, I will make time if I care. Like I made
Yeah.
time to watch WandaVision.
yeah.
I definitely made time to watch Loki.
Yeah.
Because I've always been really interested in, well, first of all, Tom Hiddleston, obviously. But I really just think, like, sadly, Loki's the only villain we've had stick around.
Yeah.
Everyone else just gets killed off and thrown in the trash can after one movie, which I'm not saying they all have to stick around always, but the amount of character development and like story arcs we've gotten out of Loki because fans have demanded they keep Tom Hiddleston around.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. You just don't, even some of the main Avengers don't get that.
Yeah.
Like, I think Loki has more character development than we've ever seen out of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Like, I just wish that we got that kind of stuff. You know? Like, I wish it didn't take, I mean, this is a whole different conversation. Like, I could go down a rabbit hole of this. Like, I've been thinking about this a lot, where I would really love to sit down and have a conversation and talk about who, like, we all think are legitimately giving, like, 110% real, like, and I'm going to turn into Scorsese here, but, like, real, like, performances in these movies. Because I think I could probably count on one hand the amount of actors I think come in and really just, like, are not even just trying. They just have the talent level where they just are. Because to me, there's only a handful of them. And the fact that we started off and we kicked things off with having Robert Downey Jr., like, I think that set a specific tone. And then we kind of got a little bit away from that. And then, you know, like, it's just, I think there's a tier of where we're at now.
I think one of the single biggest problems we're currently at with Marvel is because of who they've gotten and because of the names and everyone they've gotten, it is very much we've got you for 10 minutes on this day.
But that's that's what I mean. Like, all of a sudden, instead of being like, we can have this movie with Robert Downey Jr. and we see if it works and we see what happens, and like, you're not worried about we need to get a celebrity cameo in for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, that was never anything they were worried about in phase one. Like, that just never was. And I think also because they're pumping out movies so fast now, they need to cast so many people so quickly that it's just, and at this point, back then you didn't know really if it was actually going to be like a 10-year contract commitment. They probably told you maybe it had the potential to be that.
Yeah.
But now you know, if you're signing on for this, you could potentially be doing like
doing
a whole
this for a while,
10-year stint, which I think is tough for a lot of actors. I just think it's an interesting conversation to have because, I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, I do, but when Tom Hiddleston was cast, and when Chris Hemsworth and Tom were cast, people were like, who the fuck are these guys? This is going to be a joke. Like,
same with Chris Evans.
Same with Chris Evans.
Same with Robert Downey Jr. Like I get,
but Robert Downey Jr. is a little different.
Yeah,
because he already had such a career built up. Like, he was in a weird place in his life, but like, we knew he could act. Already, like, he was already a caliber of his own. The other ones that they brought in, they weren't bringing in names to bring in names. They were auditioning people and finding these people that they really felt were going to be the right fits for these. Like, it wasn't, what's the biggest name we can get to sign a 10-year contract? And I feel like that's where we're at now, unfortunately, which I'm fascinated to know how they actually got Jonathan Majors to agree to begin the MCU.
I think because it's all over in 2 years.
You think so? You think they said you only have to sign for
2026,
4 years or something?
2025,
2026. Yeah.
Oh, well, they just delayed Kang till 2026 because they delayed it to 2026. So because he's going to be in Secret Wars, like that's Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars are tied into each other. So like, but I think that was probably how it's like, this isn't a 10-year deal because we're making this next saga a lot shorter and like, you know, hey, go be the villain for the MCU for the next 4 years.
Get the bag and run.
Yeah, but no, I agree. And if it was only a 4-year deal, I can see him wanting to sign that for sure. I just feel like, you know, the way I hear him talk about like in interviews about filmmaking and stuff. I just, if they said like we need you for 10 years, I don't know if he would have done it.
I don't know how many actors would at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's that, and that's why I'm really fascinated, terrified, mind you, but fascinated to see what happens with Fantastic Four and that
Who they
casting.
get.
Yeah, because
Same with X-Men.
well,
Like X-Men's going to be the other big
here's
one.
the thing. Hot take. I don't know if X-Men's actually going to happen.
Well, yeah, that's.
I don't know if it's still
if we're still in the MCU.
if we're still
at
in
that
the
point.
MCU at that point,
Yeah.
which would be objectively hilarious. By the way, they've spent all this time trying to get the rights to X-Men, and then it just all finally gets to that point where no one really cares anymore. Anyway,
But that like it's amazing. So like after this movie, because the thing that this I was saying that, and I said this after we came out. This movie doesn't actually do anything like wrong. Like you watched Thor: Love and Thunder, and you're like, that was unfunny. It was pain. Like you could feel the. I don't want to say you could feel the laziness in that. I like Thor: Love and Thunder to me is one of the worst MCU movies. I
agree with
really
you.
did not
Yeah.
like Thor: Love and Thunder.
no, I didn't either.
Whereas
Floating head boy will live in my nightmares for the rest
That
of
was
time.
the first movie I saw when I came back from Greece, like the day of. And it was like, I think I was just so excited to be back in a movie theater that I actually liked that movie.
Yeah, I'm really not. I really don't like that. But this one, I can't go. And I know we've just talked for an hour about it was this, and this, but like a lot of it felt like, oh, this is an MCU Marvel movie, and there's not. That is like painfully bad outside of MODOK. That is painfully bad CGI. That is painfully bad writing. That is painfully like there wasn't those painfully bad. That's why it's only a 2-star movie for me.
Yeah.
But afterwards, I turned to Blake and you guys, and I was like, I need to rewatch these old Marvel movies because there was no way they were this. Because there's nothing that this did wrong per se. It's just dull and boring, and it could be a factor of superhero fatigue. Am I just fatigued from these movies? Am I just over these movies? Or do I because I haven't done an MCU rewatch in about 5 years. It's
been a long time for me, too.
I haven't done
while.
one
I've
since.
done like 2 in the last, because I only really got into these movies right after Infinity War, because that was the first MCU movie I saw. But then I did another rewatch with my best friend when I was showing her the movies, and yeah, like the first ones just are so epic, but they're so epic in such a small scale, and they like. The ones coming out now should be more epic. And like the End Games and the Infinity Wars, they are, but now it's just like completely gone backwards. Like, it's hard to watch.
But that's where I'm at. Like, I want to go back and rewatch them because I want to find out, like, are those movies still great or very good? Or have I just gotten so fatigued on there? And if I go back, was there filmmaking? Was there actual genuine, hey, we're moving a camera. Hey, we're actually setting up shots.
There certainly
Hey,
wasn't Thor.
Yeah, but I know, yeah, okay, Thor, fair enough. But like, is there actual people who are making these movies and not? I can feel a studio the entire time, and I'm fascinated to go back and watch them like that because.
If you just watch the like title ones, like Captain America, Iron Man, that kind of thing.
I'll sit down and do them. I'll probably do them in like a couple of weeks. Or I'll probably do them just before Guardians, to be honest. But because the last time I did it was just before Infinity War. That was the last time I did it, and that's what 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then this is the only franchise. This is like you saying the Infinity War was your first one. I saw Iron Man in theaters. I've seen every single MCU movie in theaters. Never like the only one I haven't seen opening. The only one I haven't seen opening day is Endgame.
Sorry.
It's the only one I didn't see opening day,
Sorry.
and that was
Why?
that was my fault.
That was my
I feel like I've heard the story about retail.
So we Endgame opened on Anzac Day. That was the day. It was also the 25th of April. Yeah, it was always opening on the 25th of April.
Yeah.
And then so we bought tickets to Book of Mormon in Brisbane on the 24th. And then Disney pulled Endgame by one day, and they made it on the 24th.
Yeah, I did see on the 24th.
But we couldn't go. We couldn't go because you had work that morning, and then I had Book of Mormon that night. Like we had to go Book of Mormon that night, so we had to go on Anzac Day.
We had to stay off of the internet for that day and then go the next day. But
and they didn't do screenings here at all for it, like anywhere. Like you could not get just because we got it so early. Like we didn't even do midnights here.
Oh yeah, I remember I was in my film Twitter shit back then, and I was in a group chat with a bunch of people about Avengers Endgame, and a lot of them were from overseas, and I was like, I saw Avengers Endgame, and they were like, what the fuck?
I was like that. I was like that with Force Awakens and Last Jedi when those came out, because we were so early. And I saw Force Awakens really early, when I shouldn't have. Anyway, so final thoughts. We kind of all said it.
Yeah, I think we've said enough.
Yeah, I think we've kind of talked it out at this point. It just makes me sad, man. It's just kind of depressing where we are at. Like, I don't think I can bring myself to like really get excited about or look forward to anything that is not Loki season 2.
Yeah, same.
So at this point, that's just where I'm at.
And as someone who, that's the other thing. I'm devastated Secret Invasion's not a movie, because that could have been a really cool movie, but instead we're getting it as a TV show and a 6-episode. And I really am not a fan of the TV shows outside of Loki. I think Loki's the only one, and WandaVision are the two that have really.
The problem
landed.
is, it's only going to work if they've envisioned it as a TV series. If it's a movie that they were like, oh, this was a movie, and they're just going to try and chop it into a TV show, it's going to get real wonky. Like, because I haven't seen it yet, but didn't you say Moon Knight kind of felt like that?
Moon Knight felt like it's a movie. Moon Knight felt the entire time it should have been a movie.
Where they just stretched it out.
They've stretched. I felt like it should have been a movie.
It's especially because the last 2 episodes of that are what I thought the whole season would be like the trippiness of it.
Yeah.
And so making that a movie would have definitely cut out the filler. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see, I guess.
All right, guys.
What do we got next week?
So next week is next week's the big one. Next week is one that I think we're all very, very excited for.
Actually, I'm having a mind blank. I have no idea what you're about to say.
There's 3 movies. One is a big one that we need to finally see, and you get to finally talk about, and that's After Sun. That's next week.
Oh my god! Yes, yes.
So we'll get to talk about After Sun. Missing as well.
Oh yeah,
which I think is going to be fun. I think it could be fun.
Same, yeah.
And then, guys, the greatest movie, the best comedy of 2023 is going to be next week, and that is, of course, Cocaine Bear.
Fuck yeah.
It's going to be a real interesting week next week.
Yep.
True. I don't actually... Never mind. We'll talk about that after.
And then also the Luther movie, which I'm like, as someone who really loves Idris Elba's TV show.
What's that about?
He's a cop. It's a British.
Okay.
They finally made a movie. It comes. Netflix is releasing it, but they're putting it in theaters for a little bit, and it comes out on next week. So
After Some Missing and Cocaine Bear,
that is a trio right there, my friends.
So next week, tune in next week. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're finally going to actually talk about some of these movies that I'm very excited. So Taylor, where can they find you?
Everyone can find me at Finally Tailored pretty much everywhere. Letterboxd, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Tumblr, probably some other TikTok, whatever. Just search Finally Tailored. It's probably me.
Alayna?
You can find me at Laney Film on Twitter and TikTok, and Alayna Violet on Letterboxd and Instagram, and all of us are at Lights on the Screen on Instagram.
And you guys can find me over at Twitter and Letterboxd at Jacob London. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. And until next time, we will see you right here on the podcast.